Hey guys, it's Nero back again with a new video, and today we're just going to be doing some Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and it's going to be somewhat like an informal benchmarking video where I just go around and show you what different parts of the game, how different parts of the game run on the system that I have, and this is going to be in the description as well, but I'm just going to start off by telling you a little bit about my system. Now I've got an FX 8320 from AMD, and I overclocked it to 4.3 hertz, or gigahertz I should say, and I've got an R9 280 non-X edition from Power Color, and that one is overclocked to 1125 on the core clock and 1350 on the memory clock. And right now we're just sailing around and getting 60 FPS. Now this is not at max settings. It's not possible to get 60 FPS anywhere in this game with max settings. But I've got what I would call sort of like a hybrid between low, mid, and high settings. So like for instance, environment quality, textures, shadows, they're all high. I've got a little bit of anti-aliasing just because I've got a 27-inch monitor, and 1080p has some aliasing on a 27-inch monitor, sadly. Reflection quality is off. I don't really mind this, but some people might, but I don't really stare at the reflections all too often. Motion blur is off just because motion blur sucks. Ambient occlusion is like, I don't really see much of a difference with HBAO+, so I just keep it on SSAO. God rays low. I like God rays high. It looks nice, but it just takes way too many frames off. And volumetric fog is off. That doesn't really take too many frames off, but I just notice some stuttering sometimes when I'm in high areas with a lot of fog, so I just have that off by default. And VSync is on just because just personal preference, really. Now, going back in game, sailing around, you stay like about 60 FPS most of the time, and on land it's usually around that as well. But the thing where it gets kind of iffy is when you go to land, and let's like jump to land right now. So here we are at land, and you can see the FPS has dropped to 30, sometimes dipping into 29 point something, but also it goes up and downish. Now you can lock it to 30 if like changing frames it bothers you, and it does for some people, but not really for me. And you can lock it down to 30, but I'm fine with it. And so it really depends on where you're looking, but you can get anywhere from 30 to 60. But that's why I said it was iffy on land, and especially towns. I wouldn't want to say land, because like if you go to forest, it's fine there. Usually stays 60, sometimes drops to like 50 or 45, but in towns, it's really the most problematic areas. Towns, and when you're taking forts, because of all the smoke effects and fire, it drops to 30 here. And it's still entirely playable. I mean, this looks still a lot better than what a console could do, while at the same time giving console quality frames. Sometimes a little bit better than console quality frames. So it's overall not a bad deal for sort of low mid-end system, though, like the kind I have. Now, the one thing that I would have to say is that this game probably is not the most optimized, and that could be affecting us, because I can run games that look a lot better than this. For instance, like Battlefield 4, no problem, on high ultra settings at 60 FPS almost 95% of the time. And this it doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as good as Battlefield 4. It doesn't look nearly as good. The textures don't look as good. The foliage is not as detailed. But maybe you could make something of an argument like it's trying to load more because of the size of the world. But still, I think optimization is the biggest issue here. Because this game should be, I was expecting it to, with the system that I had, it should be running at 60 frames. At least, like, maybe not everywhere, but most places. But it's still not. And, you know, maybe if I had an NVIDIA card, it would go better, because NVIDIA cards seem to work better selectively for some reason with games. And that could be another thing, too. Battlefield 4 actually does work better with AMD, so I think AMD does a little bit of that as well. But getting back on track, 30 FPS on land, 60 FPS depending on where you're looking, but just generally expect 30. Now we'll jump to another area. Let's just go to like a sea battle. Alright, now we're in a somewhat large battle and with a lot of weather effects going on, and as you can see, it's taking a toll on the system. It's dropping down to 29.9, and then it's going back up and down. And so sea battles are generally going to be like this if you're going to be doing them in like a lot of heavy weather. They're going to be 30 FPS going up and down however you like it. And again, you can lock it for those of you who don't like, or it's not really a matter of liking, who can't, who get motion sickness when frames change too fast. Now, you see, it's not really that bad, because it's not like being 30 FPS 90% of the time. It's more like a 60-40 split between being 30 FPS and going up and down. But the real sort of issue, well, not really an issue, but sort of like the downside would be when you're trying to raid a ship. Because when you're raiding the ship, it doesn't really go much past 40. Like in some places when you're not looking at anything important, but that doesn't really matter anyway. You're not gonna be focused on that. See, it usually will say like around what you're seeing right now. Just 30, 35, stuff like that. It's still completely playable, and it's really fun. And you don't really notice the 30 frames as much, because 30 FPS, to me, the way it looks is less bad than how it feels. And you can minimize that by just like using an Xbox 360 controller, which for some reason just feels better to use in lower frame rates. So, it's like some of you may have noticed that I am using a 360 controller to play this, and that's why the lower frame rates just feel better on a controller. It might have something to do with just like the low precision of a controller matching up with the low precision of low frame rates, and like a mouse just not being able to keep on par with the badness, if you'll allow me to put it that way. So that's about it. Till next time, I suppose. Like, comment, and subscribe. More content will be coming up soon, and tell me any other games that you'd like to do informal benchmarks with. I might make this into a series, actually. Call it Informal Benchmarks. Well, that's about it for my informal benchmarking video. Subscribe, give a like, comment. Well, do what you do, and until next time, Nero Saldris out.